Hey, country friends and neighbors, you know them, you love them, you liked them on a previous show here on Point. Songwriter Jeff Power is back to talk more about his songs in the music industry here on Point. Hey, this is Ken Kudrowski, and thank you for joining me here on Point. I'm glad you're out there, and I do want to thank you all for all the time you spend with me watching my shows here on the Armstrong Neighborhood Channel. Well, not too long ago, I had this gentleman on. You see him on the screen right now, Jeff Power. And for some unknown reason, I was able to bamboozle him, beg him, plead with him to come on for another show. And he was weak-minded enough to say, yes, Ken, I'll be glad to come back. So from his mile high, yeah, the big check. Tell me about it. I'd like to see my big check. So from his mile high perch in Denver, Colorado, home of the Rockies, home of all that thin air, here he is, Mr. Music himself, Jeff Power. Jeff, thank you for being brave enough to come back for part 2 of our exploration of country and Western music and the music business in general. Thank you so much.
It's fun to be back.
Well, good. Well, on part 1 of this epic production, we talked about the writing process, you know, how you started out because it was good therapy for you. I understand that. You lost a wife. I lost a wife. I understand the need for therapy and for putting yourself together after a loss like that. And then you talked about getting involved in writing groups and everything else. And you sang 2 songs that you've basically honed for certain people that you'd like to sell the songs to. But it's not just sitting down and at 3 o'clock in the morning or 12 noon or 3 o'clock in the afternoon to jot down lyrics. There's that whole business side that people don't either want to think about or don't think about the music business. They just know that they're in their car, and whether it's Sirius XM or whether it's a local radio station, they just push the button and they want to hear the songs come out. They don't care about all those other processes, but yet those processes are there. So you know, there are a couple of things I'd like to know about, and you can kind of school me, tutor me about things like publishers and labels and A&R. So I threw 3 at you. So why don't you start running with those?
Yeah, you bet. Well, the songwriting group that I'm part of, that anybody in the world can join online, songtown.com, obviously they major on the craft of writing very good songs. And most of us in Songtown want to write songs that a commercial artist would pick up. You can, again, everybody can write songs for their own private reasons and never try to get them to an artist, and that's fine. I'm in that ecosystem where I want to create songs that are good enough in general and commercial enough in general that an artist might want to cut it. You can imagine any industry that becomes a highly popular industry, whether it's music or professional sports or Broadway or television or film or anything that starts to become highly popular, ends up having jillions of people that want to get into it, right? So an ecosystem just naturally has to develop to create what are the avenues for that. And you can't have a jillion people crowding into something. You got to figure out, you know, an artist in Nashville can't listen to 10,000 wannabes like me around the world to pick a song. I mean, that's not going to work. So I think that's where the other side of this Songtown organization I belong to, they spend a decent amount of time schooling us on the way, at least the Nashville ecosystem works, which is similar to New York and LA, but not identical. So you can imagine you need some middlewomen who curate from all the jillions of songs out there, songs that are good enough and aimed well enough at the particular artist to be pitched to an artist. And so that's where this category of publishers came in Nashville. That publishers are people who have relationships, who have proven themselves to have the right taste and right listening ear to curate songs. a lot of publishers, most publishers have songwriters on their staff. And the only way a publisher makes money is if they take a song and they get a song cut. They didn't write the song, but they get it cut. And because of their part in it, they get the publishing side. We can talk a little bit more about that. There's the songwriting side for the rights. There's the publishing side. There's all kinds of different sides to this. So they make their money through the publishing side of the business. And that's how they get a cut. You know, I've heard stories of horror stories back in the day in Nashville where people would be walking up the aisle in church to go up to the railing, presumably for communion or prayer or something, and they would throw a CD in the lap of somebody, an artist or somebody who was in church. I mean, obnoxious. Or if an artist left the window of their car slightly cracked in the Walmart parking lot, they would come back out of Walmart and see 10 or 15 CDs or tapes back in the day or whatever of people trying to get a song cut. So that's how this whole ecosystem evolved, where if you don't know an artist personally, where you can just call them and say, hey, Kenny, I've got a song I think you might like. And Kenny would tell me whether he wanted it or not. I don't know Kenny Chesney or any of those guys. So that's why I have to have relationships with publishers in Nashville. So that's what publishers do. Then labels exist to promote an artist. That's how they make their money. They create the ultimate recording that an artist does, and they put money into promoting the artist, getting the artist out on tour, blah, blah, blah. So a label are the business people who kind of know, how do you get an artist out there? How do you get them promoted on radio? How do you get them on tour where they sell merch and this and that and this and that? So that's a big part of what I've had to learn in this process as well, is how do you get to know those people and have good enough relationships where they trust your songwriting, and then maybe 1 out of 100 songs you write they might think is good enough to pitch.
What about ASCAP and BMI? What do they do?
Well, we can talk about that in a little bit. That they come in to be how songwriters and publishers get paid. So I think we can maybe talk about that at some point when we say, okay, now how does money flow through this system?
Okay. Well, you have a relationship with a publisher. You have a song. You have a song artist in mind. I know that one of those people has been with Jason Aldean. So I think that not too long ago you submitted one of your songs to a publisher for Jason's consideration. Can you tell me a little bit about that and what the title was?
Yeah. Again, in Songtown, in one of the farm system levels that I'm in, we're not on the staff of a publisher. We're not skilled enough yet for a publisher to want to put us on their payroll, but they've got several different publishers who on a monthly basis will have a once a month meeting with us on Zoom, and we get to submit one song a month, and we get feedback from those different publishers about why or why not this song might have commercial appeal. And so most of us submit songs for a long time before a publisher would ever go, hey, that's one I would like to sign what they call a single song contract. I'd like to sign a contract with you on that song because I think there's a chance I could get it cut in town. Doesn't mean it will get cut. Most of the ones they sign a contract on don't get cut, because even when they go see an artist or a label or whatever, as publishers, they've selected the best songs they can find, and they get turned down 80, 90 times out of 100 too. So it's a tough business. One of the songs I submitted, I'd been at it for a couple years, and one of the songs I submitted, we had aimed, my co-writer and I had aimed it toward Jason Aldean, and the publisher listened to it and he goes, wow, I like that. That really feels like Jason's style. I might have a shot at pitching it to him. He pitched it to Jason, and Jason listened and said, hey, good song, but no, I'll pass. Didn't fit his current project. But that was my first time getting a contract that said, okay, Jeff, you're starting to get something slightly good enough that maybe it could get cut, and it didn't. But that was reassuring to me that, okay, I'm learning.
Well, it's like with everything. I mean, you take baby steps. I mean, and
exactly.
You climb up the ladder here and there, and And then I guess your name has to circulate in town in Nashville, and maybe somebody says, "Oh yeah, I've heard about that Power guy." By the way, it's a good name to have in show business. I think there's a lot more panache to Power than there is to Kiedrowski, but that's another story for another show. So, you want to sing this song of yours that Jason didn't pick up on? Let's see what he missed out on.
Yeah, you bet. This one's called Little Fires.
1, 2, 3,
4. Love your kiss when the sun comes up, back of my neck, underneath the covers. How you walk out the bedroom door, letting your robe fall to the floor. Over coffee in the kitchen, I like how you get that smile when I touch your hair. Take a deep breath when you hear what I said, whispering in your ear. Starting little fires, hot embers on a winding trail, taking us higher. Smoke dragging along exhale, taking our time, temperature rise, burning towards the night, beating flames of desire, starting little fires. You're still at work, so I'm throwing you a text, just a little bit about what's up next. Got the candles on the table, some air is playing and the wine is chilling on ice. Starting little fires, hot embers on a winding trail, getting us higher. Slow dragging along exhale, taking our time, temperature rise, burning towards the night, beating flames of desire, starting little fire. Shoes off, lights low, I pull you in close. Skin on skin, sparks are flying. Breathe you in, your eyes on mine. We're gonna keep this up all night, yeah. That's why we love starting little fires. Hot embers on a winding trail, getting us higher. Slow dragging along exhale, taking our time, temperature rise, burning towards the night, beat flames of desire, starting little fire. Starting little fire. Starting little fire.
Wow, just a little hot in here, Jeff. Wow, that's that's a good one. Jason, what were you thinking? My God, nicely done. Nicely done.
He likes sexy songs. So if you're going to pitch to Jason, you got to either do a real country boy kind of I'm from a small town party song, or you got to do something really sexy that his female audience digs him for.
There you go. Or I'm starting a little fire on top of my my John Deere tractor out in the field.
There you go.
Something like that. Yeah.
There you go.
So before you sang the song, I started to get into compensation and all that. So maybe now's the time we could talk about how do you guys get paid? You know, is that where ASCAP and BMI come in? What's the deal?
Yeah. So in general, songs fall into that category the government considers intellectual property. So in general, it's intellectual property laws that apply. And Congress got involved, I mean, back when the gramophone was invented, right? And now you could now you could get a song out there even before radio was huge, but even radio and all that. And because, people could copy a song or they could play a song without permission and blah, blah, blah. So Congress got involved. And a long time ago, Congress kind of delineated how the pot would be divided up. And so what I had to learn, at least when you think of a song has a couple different parts to it. There's the composition of the song, like I write what I just wrote, and that's basically words and a melody, right? So I could write a song called Mary Had a Little Lamb, and anybody could sing it, right? They could sing those words in that tune. Then that's different from the recording of a song. So I could write the song Mary Had a Little Lamb, and Joe Blow down the street could record it and release it online. And then lo and behold, Beyonce hears it. She loves it. So she decides to make a recording of it and release that out into the world. And of course, her recording is going to get a jillion times more listens. Or back in the day when there was a physical thing like a tape or a CD, she'd sell a jillion times more than my buddy Joe down the street. And that's just the way it works. So the compensation is very different for the recording than it is for the composition. There is far more money in the recording, unfortunately for songwriters like me, than there is in the composition. So pure songwriters like me who aren't trying to put their own recordings out and make money off of them, we only make money off the songwriting composition side. That is even divided into two equal parts. I know this is going way down a rabbit hole here, but this is part of what I had to learn. There's the songwriter rights and there's the publisher rights. So when somebody brings a song composition to an artist and an artist says, I want to do my own recording of that and release it, the artist will get their money from their recording, but those of us on the writing side, the songwriter and the publisher, we get an amount set by Congress that gets split 50-50 between the writer and the publisher. So if a publisher likes a song I do and they say, hey, I'm going to use my contacts around town and I'm going to pitch it, the typical contract delineates and is clear. My co-writers and I, who wrote the composition, we get the songwriter portion, and then the publisher typically gets some part of the publishing portion or all of it. It all depends on what kind of contract you sign. And fortunately, in the organization I'm part of, Songtown.com, they write their contracts very generously, where even we songwriters get to keep a portion of the publishing. So that's very nice for us. So anyway, artist puts a song out there and it goes on Spotify, it goes on Apple iTunes, it goes on the radio. It could even go into a commercial or TV or film or something. And every time that song plays anywhere, even on an elevator or in a restaurant, there is money in the system that gets split up. That's where ASCAP comes in. ASCAP, American Society for Composers and Artists and Publishers. If you own a restaurant and you play music live or you play music over your speakers, you have to pay an annual fee to ASCAP and BMI and those. And ASCAP and BNI track all that stuff, and they basically divide up a pot that's got a few $1 billion a year between all the songwriters and the publishers and the artists. And that's how they track all that. I belong to ASCAP, and other songwriters I write with belong to BMI or CSAC, or one of the other, they call PROs, Performing Rights Organizations, because we have rights. So we own our song. Nobody ever buys the song from us. For our whole life, we own the rights to the song we wrote. Those can never be taken away from us, but the song is essentially licensed to however many artists want to cut it. Maybe no artist will ever cut it. Maybe you could be like Dolly Parton, and she's got dozens and dozens and hundreds of artists that have cut her songs from way back. So anyway, that's how that whole system works. It's been literally a nightmare and a headache for me trying to read up on that and learn about it, because it's a really complex system. But once you understand it, it's kind of like, okay, now I can at least understand kind of where my money is coming from. And these days, since there's not a physical object sold like a record or a CD, the songwriting part, you could get an artist could have 1 million spins on Spotify. And I, as a songwriter, would get my quarterly check for $17.50. You know, there's not a whole lot of money in it, but I'm not in it for the money. I'm in it because I love this and I'm having the time of my life in this ecosystem.
So you've been fighting the good fight. You've been climbing the ropes. You're in this organization. You've been submitting things to publishers and everything else. And now finally, this spring and this summer, you finally have one of your songs that's getting played in Canada and around the United States. It's starting to, work its way up the country charts. The artist is a Canadian gal by the name of, Tanya Woods? And the song is called
Woods.
Tiana Woods, and the song is "Get Out." So let's hear about that song.
Yeah, so two co-writers that I write with occasionally, one on the West Coast, one in Missouri, Joyce and Doug. We came together specifically thinking, okay, let's write for Tiana because she's looking for songs. And this was probably 6 to 8 months ago. And I can't remember which one of us had come up with a title. We said, COVID is starting to recede, the vaccine's starting to get out there, people are anxious, blah, blah, blah. And we thought, let's write a song called Get Out, because people are just dying to get out, And so we wrote it, we got some feedback from our mentors on it, adjusted a little bit, cleaned up the lyric, blah, blah, blah. And then it ended up getting pitched to Tiana, and she and her manager heard it and instantly emailed back, which is very unusual to have that quick of a response. I mean, it was like a 24-hour response, and she said, I want it, and I want to cut it as a single right now and release it to radio, at least here in Canada, and see if it gets released. See if U.S. stations would pick it up too. And so that's what she did. She and her manager went into the studio literally like right away and liked it enough. They cut the song and released it, and she's been interviewed at least on a bunch of Canadian stations. And I don't know, there's 35 or 40 Canadian stations. I think it's starting to get picked up in the U.S. as well. So that's not a million stations, but it's fun. For me, as an absolute amateur who's trying to get better and better at this, at least it feels like a tiny pat on the back. Like, okay, I'm slowly getting there and learning the craft a little better.
Well, it's another step along the way, and so why don't you favor us with "Get Out"?
Yeah, and this is this will be more in her key, so it's a little lower for me. It won't be the same kind of energy and quality as when Tiana belts it out, but we'll give it a shot here.
1, 2, 3.
Flipping through the channels again, staring straight out the window. Walls are closing in, ain't even noon. Watching that second hand spinning around in circles, knowing I need a change real soon. Gotta get out of here, go full throttle, take it to a higher view. Wind in my face, it's my escape. Come back, remember of the human race. You think I know, there ain't no doubt. I gotta get out. Gonna head straight to the bay, yeah. Soak up some summer rays. Shoot me a shot of Jose in a chaser or two, yeah. Gotta get out of here. Go full throttle, take it to a higher gear. Wind in my face, it's my escape. Come back, a member of the human race. You think I know, there ain't no doubt. I gotta get out. I gotta get out. gotta get out of here. Go full throttle, take it to a higher gear. Wind in my face, it's my escape. Come back, member of the human race. I know there ain't no doubt. I gotta get out. I gotta get out. Yeah, I gotta get out. Gotta get out.
Yeehaw! All right. All right, country friends and neighbors, you've heard it here. Boy, if it was back in the day, I'd get out and go to the record store and buy a vinyl disc, but that's not going to happen anymore. But wow, nicely done, sir. So
Thank you.
I do know from being a DJ back in the days in the, I hate to say it, in the 60s and 70s, I know that records sometime take a while to get going. So if it's on all those Canadian stations and jumping over the border into the American market, then we're looking for good things about Get Out and Jeff Power. Where do I begin to thank you? I can't thank you enough for sharing all this information about the songwriting process and the business part of the country and Western music. It's been sensational. I thank you for taking time from all the way over there in Denver, Colorado, for God's sakes, and really appreciate Denver, Colorado, for God's sakes, and glad you're here with us. I'm glad we've got the internet. Otherwise, it'd be kind of hard to get in the car and drive out Interstate 70 to see you today, but we would have had to have done that. So, Jeff,
Well,
thank you so much for your time. And
just like this.
yeah. Well, it's been beautiful. So I hope I'll talk to you soon. Thanks again for being here on point. I used to be a news director at a country and Western music station in Buffalo, New York. That's my experience with country music. So nice to talk to Jeff Power, who really knows about country and Western music. Hope you enjoyed what he had to say and his music. Hey, I'm Ken Kidrowski. You've been on point.